Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of the CineFiles. Today's discussion is about time travel movies. It's a subgenre of a genre known as sci-fi, and we all love a good time travel flick. We all like to have our minds fucked with and all that stuff.
Supposedly.
Yes, all the weird paradoxes that go into the topic of time travel. Can you change time? Now, does time travel involve changing the time frame in the future? Does it involve creating an alternate reality to what has already existed? It depends on the film, depends on the approach, depends on the philosophy of the filmmaker at the time. But before we get into that, my name is Eric Cohen. I am producer and co-host of the CineFiles. To my left is Andre Joseph. And to his left is Jeff Galashaw of Unfinished Business and the CineFiles. He's multitasking people, doing two shows at the same time.
Yes.
It's like he's time traveling, and that's his time travel twin is doing one show, while the other is doing the CineFiles. I guess the granddaddy of time travel films is The Time Machine, the George Powell produced film, starring the late Rod Taylor, died just last year, based on the H.G. Wells novel. It's a cute movie, but you haven't seen it?
I've only seen the remake.
You haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
So there's nothing to discuss. It's set a precedent. It's the first time travel movie as far as we know. But what time travel movies can we talk about moving forward?
Well, obviously we can't talk about Back to the Future because we've discussed that previously. I'd like to bring up one of my favorites, a little ditty from 1979 that also involves H.G. Wells as a character called Time After Time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Starring Malcolm McDowell, Mary Steenburgen, David Warner, and directed by Nicholas Meyer, I believe.
Star Trek 2.
I've never read the book, The Time Machine, but what I really liked about this film is that it has so many genres in it. It's a thriller on one hand, it's a man out of time comedy on the other hand, and it's a romantic film on the other hand, because in fact, Mary Steenburgen and Malcolm McDowell fell in love on this film and then got married and stayed married for 10 years later. David Warner, strangely, as Jack the Ripper, kind of reminded me of whoever was killing people in The Man with Two Brains with Steve Martin. Because the killings seem kind of similar and kind of and taken from more of the point of view shot whenever there would be a killing. But I just remember, I love this film. This is... you don't see Mary Steenburgen work that much, but when I watched this film, I remember why, people were gaga for her as an actress, because she is just really good. I just can't say enough good things about this film. I will even be bold on this program to say this is my second favorite Malcolm McDowell performance ever.
I enjoy Time After Time a great deal. I love the conceit that how H.G. Wells expects to see this sort of utopian future.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Where everybody's more wise and all this stuff, but he gets in the first thing he sees is McDonald's logo, which is brilliant.
It was one of those movies I wasn't sure if I was going to like it when I first saw it, and then once you put H.G. Wells in 1979 San Francisco, I had fun. They really captured the essence of that environment at that particular time, and it's also still dark. It's brooding because of Jack the Ripper, but it's still fun.
I don't want to mislead the audience if you haven't seen it. It is very tongue-in-cheek, though.
Yes.
It's not like it's like a totally serious movie.
It was after Superman, so it had kind of like that same type of flavor to it. And I just love Malcolm McDowell's performance because it's the one time he plays a good guy for a change.
Yeah.
And H.G. Wells is a fully fleshed out character. Like, he wants to stop Jack the Ripper, but he's also a pacifist. So it's like he wants to avoid guns at all costs, and I think that makes him so unique as a hero.
Time After Time introduced a sort of time paradox element, right?
And then, Terminator ran with it?
Yeah, kind of a similar idea. But up to that, we didn't really have... Les Jetées is probably the first one from the 60s, right? Les Jetées, which eventually inspired 12 Monkeys, which we went into in our Gilliam episode. We don't need to go into it here. That might have been the first time travel piece to inject a sort of paradox element, where the movie opens up with a little boy witnessing the death of an adult on a pier. You find out that adult is a little boy grown up later on. Because other than that, most time travel movies were just like kitschy stuff. Guys go either the future in a time, they fight some sort of fascist society in the future, or they go back in time, they fight dinosaurs. Time after time, somewhere in time, they came out around the same time. See what I did there? Then what else do we have that came out like soon after that? We had the Back to the Future movies, which we already discussed.
I guess the Terminator, the first one.
Terminator, which we've already we discussed that
Yeah,
in
we
James
discussed.
Cameron episode, and that has like a similar paradoxical element as Time After Time.
That was genius at the time until they decided to keep continuing with the series.
Right. So yeah, they had to like kind of go back and like kind of retrofit other ideas onto it until they
Exactly.
kept contradicting themselves.
Well, I could say one movie that really took the paradox concept and also was inspired by Back to the Future, and I'm not embarrassed to say it, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Thank you very much, sir, for bringing that up. Huge Bill and Ted fan.
same here.
Huge Bill and Ted fan.
It's a movie that shouldn't have worked, but it did.
It's such a fun movie. It's Keanu Reeves is so good in it, which is a weird thing to say.
What's wrong with Alex Winter?
No, Alex Winter's great.
Okay,
No, Alex
that's what
Winter's
I'm saying.
fantastic.
Give him
No,
some
no,
credit.
don't get me wrong there. No, but you know, Keanu Reeves. That was like during a phase where Keanu Reeves, people thought he was a good actor. You know, River's Edge came out around the same time, and then you realize, no, that's all Keanu Reeves does, kind of thing.
He does
Not that
more.
he's bad. Not that he's bad. And look, I think he's from the interviews and you hear the stories about him riding New York subway and offering seats to old ladies. He's obviously seems like a genuinely nice, cool guy.
Point Break, man. Point Break.
But I greatly, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was like a college movie for me. You know, something you would go to and watch all the time, get really stoned. You know, and just really, really enjoy it. And it kind of like out paradoxes itself, but has a lot of fun with the concept.
One of the few noteworthy on-screen roles for George Carlin in an acting capacity.
Who's great in it. He's so much fun.
I love the obstacles that they have to go through. It's not just trying to get all those historical figures to their history report,
Right.
but it's like, you know, Napoleon hanging out with, I guess, Bill or Ted's siblings, and you know, getting with the ice cream and the bowling.
And being a jerk, basically.
Yeah, and then when they have to, like, I guess, clean up the house and they leave everybody in the mall, and then they all start fucking shit up and they end up getting arrested. So it's like it's got
Joan of Arc,
Yeah, Joan of
yes,
Arc.
Jane
played by
Whelan.
Jane Whelan. And
interesting casting choice. I like the sequel a lot. It's
did I.
a
Sequel's
different
very
approach.
inventive.
It's a different approach. It's not so much a time travel piece, but the sequel is very imaginative. It's not as laugh out loud funny as the first one, but they do some serious, like kind of like they try to do some like weird deep sci-fi kind of stuff.
Well, William Sadler makes that movie his death.
Oh, he's hilarious
Yes.
as death.
Amazing.
So then we had Bill and Ted's. I'm trying to think what else.
Time Cop.
Oh, Time
I was
Cop.
about to say, well, since you want to go with time in the title,
Yeah, it's the same thing.
I barely remember Time Cop.
I just
to be
remember
honest.
Ron Silver.
Yeah, Ron Silver pretty much makes the movie trying to like become president in the future, so he tries to influence his younger self into killing the guy that created the time machine device, and so he goes up like 20 points in the polls. He, like I said, he really makes a film, and Van Damme's not that bad as an
He's
actor.
not that bad. I mean, he does the split, of course, a move, and then he has a mullet again. But the one detail for some odd reason that always stays with me is that you have to keep your pulse to a certain like rate to go through time travel, or you end up splattered on the wall.
Oh, yes.
I remember that's the one big detail I remember about that film. And Mia Sara came out of nowhere to be on screen again, playing his love interest,
Yeah,
who we have
she
to
was
say.
hot in the movie.
Yeah, she was. Primer, directed by Shane Carruth, written and directed. It was a $7,000 budget. And it's a film to this day. It's still really hard to figure out just watching it, because I know the first time I didn't get it. And it's a film that I can rewatch and still not get, but it feels like every time you watch it, maybe you get it a little bit more. And it's it's sort of, I guess, like 2001, where you can see whatever you want to see in it. But there is no real explanation, because as the film goes on, these two guys are working as part-time engineers, and they're trying to create a machine. I forgot what the original concept of the machine was, but they discover that it's, it works for time travel. And as the film goes on, they keep using it, but also they keep jumping around. And as you're watching it, you're not sure like where you're at exactly in the film. And is this the ones we know from the beginning, or is this their alternate versions from the future coming back? So it's always confusing.
I like it a lot. I agree with you. It was like the memento of time travel movies,
Yes.
but even far more confusing. And I think, and the thing that I liked about Primer is that it was intentionally confusing. The whole point was that they have to keep going back to change things. Every time they change things, it gets more fucked up, so they have to keep coming back. And then it gets to the point where it's like unfolding on itself. And there's just multiple versions of these guys out there because they keep trying to go back, fix whatever they want to fix, and do whatever they want to do to the point where it becomes confusing intentionally. And it gets to the point where the lead character's like, I got to get out of Dodge now because I fucked up everything beyond repair. And it was like an interesting way to conclude that movie, I thought, where it was like, it wasn't one of these things where like they figured out a way to resolve everything, and usually ends with like this whole, like most time travel movies either ends with like a cynical note or a hopeful note. Things might have changed, and maybe they changed for the better, or maybe they changed for the worse. But this one was like, no, I can't fix this. Nothing to be fixed. I'm just gonna like go to some foreign country and change my identity and just like leave. So then we get to Time Crimes, which is kind of similar, but a little not as complicated.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot more understandable.
But it's an interest because the main protagonist is not a scientist. He didn't invent the technology. He just stumbles on it by accident.
Literally,
it's a neighbor, right?
Yes.
And it's a very dark comedy.
Oh yes. Tom Cruise wanted to buy up the rights to remake it. I think it's fine the way it is. I think more people should go out and see it and discover it. And that's why I didn't really want to ruin anything too much that happens in it. Just know it involves time travel.
Yeah, it's a fun, clever, very dark film.
And that doesn't really focus on the science as much as the consequences.
Right, and on the consequences. In fact, have you guys seen the third VHS film?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Figliano
Yes.
directed a segment for it, and there's sort of similarities to Time Crimes, and it's like a little segment. But basically, he opens up a portal to another dimension. That's an alternate reality to the one that the character lives in, which I thought was a terrible sequel, by the way. I thought his was the best story in it, but I thought the movie was a terrible sequel.
After VHS too. Yeah.
But anyways, but we're talking about time travel films. So, Time Crimes, yeah, we talked about Primer, Time Crimes. Now we're getting into what was that Denzel Washington film?
Oh, Deja Vu.
Deja Vu.
Oh, God.
And now we're starting to get into this trend now involving cops or people that have to chase somebody through time. It's sort of like, it's weird. You think Time Cop was successful, you have like all these like copycats. No, apparently the copycats happened like a good decade after Time Cop goes out, right? So Deja Vu, I barely remember it.
I remember it as being bad.
And I remember, I thought the time travel conceit was terrible.
Yeah, he gets crushed in like a little cube, and then it sends him back like a couple of days earlier.
And it just happens to be this team that just happens to be working on this crazy experiment led by Val Kilmer. And another thing that more played up a little romantic angle more than anything else in the film. And it's a shame because it was a Tony Scott film, so I was really looking forward to it.
Of course you were.
Hello, legendary.
Yeah, Jesus is the bad guy. Jim Caviezel.
Yeah, less said about him.
He's been playing the bad guy a lot.
Yeah.
Can we get into like time travel themes a little bit? Because it seems like there's two different philosophies to approaching a time travel story, right?
Okay.
There's a philosophy that events in the present could affect events in the future. Mm-hmm. That time isn't fixed. Then there's a philosophy that if you go back in time and change things, so it changes things in the future, all you're doing is creating a new timeline, an alternate reality or a parallel reality to that thing. The first Star Trek film, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, really put that to the fore and said, okay, we just changed time. We just created a whole new timeline, by causing all the stuff, which was a convenient way to reboot the whole series, right? Mm-hmm. But it made sense from a scientific standpoint. But a lot of time travel films are all about fucking with the future. Going back in time, changing things so that the future's messed up. Now we have things like, butterfly effect.
Oh, yes.
Right. Which some people are fans of.
I'm one of them.
Oh, really? I'm not
Even
a fan.
though I don't like Ashton Kutcher.
I'm not a
like
fan.
the film.
And it's okay.
I realize the whole thing is stupid because the whole premise, spoilers, of the whole film is the whole thing at the end is he's supposed to not be with this girl and that's what's best for everybody's future. But then at the last 5 minutes of the film, he's living his life. Everybody's perfect. Then he sees the girl, and he doesn't even know he's supposed to know her, but he's drawn to her. So it's like all this was for nothing because you're still going to end up with her and fuck everything up all to begin with. But I like the premise.
I wasn't crazy about it. I actually saw the director's cut with a different ending. Where I think he kills himself in the womb.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That was an added extra scene on the DVD.
God, that's such a dumb idea. Donnie Darko,
Yes.
which I'm not a fan of.
I was going to say, I'm not the biggest fan of that film.
I know this is a word that's overused in criticism, and I know
here
it's
we
a
go.
word that people hate, saying, "Oh, that doesn't really describe anything." I think Donnie Darko is pretentious as hell. I really do.
Agreed.
It's like oh, look at how goth this is, and look at how how emo that is.
It's so thoughtful.
and so thoughtful
But
and thought provoking.
It also, for some odd reason, feels a very like emotionally stiff film for me. Like you watch it, it just feels like the characters stand apart from anything that would be normal. It just feels like everybody's so disaffected, so it just never feels natural or even realistic.
But this film has a hardcore fan base.
Of course,
yeah.
People
because
who
it's
love this
designed to
film.
appeal to every outsider and how they feel in society. And it just, I mean, I'm not shitting on the film or their feelings for the film. It just wasn't for me, and I'm somebody who usually likes those sort of films.
And this is just me, but after I've seen the film twice. I tried to give it a second chance once. I was like, no, my opinion hasn't changed. But I feel like I need to take a shower. After I watch, there's something about it. It's like it's kind of like so depressing and grimy, and so like.
I think after any Richard Kelly movie after that, I felt that way. Particularly Southland Tales.
And the scary part is that's his best. Donnie Darko's his best
Yeah,
film.
that
out
was
of
like his
the movies
magnum
he's
opus.
made. So
Although, well, The Box has elements of time travel in it too, doesn't it? I mean,
It plays with fate and certain consequences.
like you can try to change things for the
Yeah.
better, kind of thing. I think that I didn't think it was as bad as people made it out to be. I thought it was better than Donnie Darko.
wow.
But it's not a great film. I don't know what to think about Kelly as a director. I think he's obviously got an imagination.
Yes.
I just don't know if he knows how to organize his concepts in a way where it works in a script or in terms of telling a story. And I know that some people are going to defend him and say, no, it's like the Dario Argento thing. It's dream logic, or it's meant to be ambiguous, or all this and that and that. And I'm like, no, it feels like his stuff feels like rough drafts to me. Looper.
Yeah,
Yes,
Looper.
very good
Yes.
one. And
Looper's very good, very creative, very original. I love the concept of it's these guys that
being hunted by the Amish.
are being hunted by the Amish. But I liked how the concept, like eventually you're going to have to kill yourself and then you're retired, and that kind of thing.
Right.
It's an interesting concept.
Yay!
I
What a
think
great job.
Jason. I think Gordon Levitt does a really good job of impersonating,
Bruce
Willis.
Willis.
and I think Bruce Willis does a really good job of meeting him halfway. Even though he doesn't do the makeup thing, I think
He doesn't act like himself, like in any other movie.
Right. And Emily Blunt is great in it.
I thought she was like a Linda Hamilton impersonation.
Okay. Well, she lightened her hair. That's all I can
Look at the way she holds a shotgun and tell me that's not Terminator 2.
Shiloh Fernandez, who is also like, I guess Jeff Daniels' kind of like flunky right hand man. He's very serious in the role because he's supposed to be kind of a major villain or thorn in the side. But I found like sometimes his performance more the comedic relief and lets off a lot of tension in the film, because I found like, for instance, one looper, Garrett De La Hunt, played by him, I found him more cold and scary as like more of a person you want to avoid rather than Shiloh Fernandez, who just seems like the comedic screw up, but then comes into a scene where it's like, wait, now it's serious because he's like really at an impasse here.
Did you expect the Shiloh Fernandez, is that his name? His character to turn out to be Jeff Bridges grown up? And that's why Jeff Bridges was so harsh on him sometimes.
Why are you? I didn't know Jeff Bridges was in this film.
I mean, not
Like,
Jeff Bridges.
I'm like,
Jeff
Jeff
Daniels.
Bridges is in this movie.
The movie's
totally
called Time Jumper, and it stars Jeff Bridges.
I was about to say, I totally missed this part of the film.
Jeff Daniels. Did you kind of expect there was going to be
No.
like this payoff with that? I kind of was thinking it was going to go there, but never did.
Oh, but my thing was that just watching the film, everything was surprising to me. It was like, even when you see the trailer, you think it's going to be one kind of film, but then when you sit there and watch it,
Right.
it's this everything's totally different. Like you said, you can argue about the logic and all that about the time travel, but I just enjoyed it for what
I
it
thought
was.
that the logic was sound.
Yeah, it was.
I felt that they set up its rules, and it followed the rules exactly as it was set up.
Like I said, my one question is, why were the Looper Keepers of the Future, another new title for this film, why were they Amish?
Source code.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
Which made me a fan of Jake Gyllenhaal again.
Gyllenhaal is very good in it. Interesting premise. Though something about the end, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert. So he winds up taking over the body of the guy whose his mind entered into. So what happens to the guy whose body he takes over?
Well, they were probably hoping that you weren't thinking about that at that point.
Because I felt bad for whomever he took over.
But why? You didn't get to know him.
But still, it just seemed kind of unethical.
But
to me.
Jake Gyllenhaal deserved it. We spent 2
It's
hours
like if
with
I
him.
murdered you and took on your identity, your social security number, everything. Suddenly I'm Jeff Galashaw. How's that fair to you?
So you're thinking about it as more of like a stolen identity case.
Well, that's what it basically is.
Why? Well, okay. We didn't get to know the victim here, so we're not supposed to feel anything for him. We're supposed to like Jake Gyllenhaal and the unfortunate circumstances of his life.
He could be a total asshole, and he makes.
What
him
are
into
you, a
hero.
sociopath?
No, I'm trying to legitimize this film's premise.
Other than that, it's a very enjoyable film, very
Yes.
entertaining, smart.
I will agree with you.
Big fan of the director.
Oh, I am too. I love the
Huge
movie.
fan of Moon. Yeah.
Duncan
Duncan Jones.
I kind of wish the actresses would switch places, though.
Interesting.
Because nothing's wrong with Vera Farmiga's performance, but I always just Michelle Monaghan as a romantic interest, she never appealed to me. I always thought Vera Farmiga would have been better in that role, and it would have been a change of pace for both of them because we're used to seeing Vera Farmiga more as the more in control, powerful person. We never see her more as the shot noose.
It's a film that has heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has heart, which is unusual for something like that.
Hello, we forgot one of the biggest sci-fi titles of recent memory and a surprise hit, Hot Tub Time Machine. With John Cusack.
Well, if we brought up Bill and Ted, we had to bring
Exactly.
up Hot Tub.
Okay.
It's
Give it-
entertaining. It's funny.
It's better than its title would have you believe.
Yeah,
Let me
no,
put it to you.
I enjoyed it when I watched it. I think it's like one of those like goes in one ear out the other kind of films. It's like once you've seen it, you kind of forgot you saw it.
Well, unfortunately, I saw the sequel.
Yeah, Rob Corddry was funny, and Craig Robinson was pretty cool, but John Cusack looked like he didn't want to be there.
Well, that's unfortunately how John
I
Cusack looks in a
wanna know
lot
how
of
he
films.
was enticed to do this
I
film.
didn't think he was that bad in it. I think that there were moments where he's having fun with his image a little bit, having been an icon of the '80s in his own
Yes.
right.
I never saw a timeline, but I know that's
I saw a
it.
timeline.
How was it?
Eh.
Exactly. That's why we probably didn't discuss.
Richard Donner got stuck on that. That's all I'm going to say.
And that was the only reason I was willing to even give it a chance if I was going to see. And then there's the abysmal, unfortunately directed by Peter Hyams, A Sound of Thunder, starring Ed Burns.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yes, I've seen that.
And
one.
they don't. It doesn't make. They completely invented for the script. There's like no time paradox.
No.
They create this thing called time storms or something like that.
Yeah.
If you go back in time and you step on a butterfly, it doesn't change the future, but it does create time storms that descend on you like clouds and brings in all these elements from different times, past, future, present, and fucks everything up, which makes no sense. Why? That was the great idea. That was what they pitched them. This is the original story by Ray Bradbury is very simple. Time, a tourist operation takes people back in time. Somebody steps on a butterfly, goes back to the future. It's changed. right? That's the simple concept. And it's been made fun of. I mean, there's a famous Simpsons episode where they made fun of that, right? And so finally they're making this movie, Distant Thunder, based on that, and they get the whole time travel conceit, like the time paradox conceit messed up to a point where it doesn't make any sense.
Now, was Ben Kingsley in both of these films? Because was he in Timeline?
No, he wasn't in Timeline.
Okay,
No.
for some
David
reason.
Thewlis was in Timeline. He was sort of technically the villain, but technically not. It's all Timeline. You know, a bunch of people are sent back to medieval times, right? Gerard Butler is like a medieval weapons expert. That's why they bring them. Send him back. I can't remember why they went back, but there's a character that is like the sheriff of Nottingham, right, of this film, and it turns out that he's from their present as well. That he was like one of the original scientists that went back in time. I guess they're a reconnaissance team to go in and try.
Yeah, it's not like they're
It's but they don't. It's basically it's just an excuse for modern day people to be like in a culture shock situation in medieval times. So they don't even really do anything with that. They don't really, it's like it's like the way the film's written presented. If you ejected the time travel element, you just have a basic medieval adventure. That's what it is.
Okay.
So, well, technically, by the time you watch this episode, you would have gotten back in time, because 3 weeks from now, when this airs, you're looking into a portal as something that happened 3 weeks prior, or 2 weeks prior. Depends on when I feel like uploading this. So, anyways, thus ends our conversation on time travel. Shut up. And nothing else to say. Jeff Galashaw.
Yes.
Andre Joseph. Myself. Bye-bye.